So is there anybody that's got a question that they'd like to ask one of the panelists? Up here in the front, right beside you, there's a microphone.
Hi. So with respect to multifamily in the US, what cap rates do you target for a minimum investment when you look for a multifamily?
John, do you want to?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say that cap rates, I use them because everyone else uses them. I don't think they're the best measure of how to value real estate. I mean, they get maligned, everyone's definition of a cap rate's different, but I'm going to answer your question. So we use detailed IRR calculations to project out kind of rates of return we're expecting. But if you're going to use cap rates, there's not just one, right? So you've got, we're in 10 markets in the southern states. One of them's Austin. That behaves like an East Coast city. So if you're trying to buy the best property in the downtown area of Austin, you're looking at a 4 cap rate, 4.25 cap rate. Right now, Houston's out of favor. The institutions have left, which is a great buying opportunity because they don't like competing against institutions. They're more sophisticated investors, but Houston would probably be at that same asset in Houston, 5.5 cap rate, and then everything else is in between our 10 markets.
Does that answer your question?
Can I re-ask it?
Yeah, sure. I didn't answer it. Okay.
Sorry. Then the question is, what criteria do you use when you look for multifamily in the United States?
Okay, all right. Okay, so I don't look for cap rates. So, well, first of all, I already talked about the cities, right? So you get down to the cities, now you look at the micro markets or sub-markets. And it's important everywhere. In the States, it's really important to be on the right side of the tracks, if you will, because you can have a great divergence in wealth and income growth levels. So we absolutely look at crime rates. That's really important. I can't say enough good about the school system in Canada. I didn't go to an expensive private school. I'm a product of the public school system. I just cannot, I look back in my life and I look at the things I'm really grateful for, and I'm really grateful for growing up in the Canadian school system. It's just amazing. But that said, in the States, they don't have as good or accessible of a school system. And we see people that will rent versus owning a home if renting gets their kid into the exemplary category of a rated school system. There's a great divergence there. That's really important.
Barriers to entry?
Barriers to entry, sure, always. But in the States, and barriers to entry are very different than what you'll find in Toronto and Vancouver and San Francisco. Our markets don't have as much barriers to entry. So, Wayman's right. You've got to really be on top of what the supply pipeline looks like, and what is buildable, what's coming down the pipe, what's been permitted, et cetera. And then you just, we're lucky enough that we've got over 600 employees. And they become great wealths of knowledge because you can't know the qualitative stuff of an individual market looking at numbers. And you can see the patterns on where in Vancouver, because you live here, and the same with Toronto when I lived there, where are people migrating to? What are the neat spots, right? And we never, ever make an investment without actually talking to people who aren't real estate experts, but people who know the local markets, because they can give you insight that I can guarantee you no real estate research report will ever provide.
At the end of the day, real estate is always local.
Yeah, very, very local, yes.